January 26, 1945, 2:20 p.m. The forests near Holtzwihr, France, were frozen in silence until the battlefield erupted. Smoke, fire, and chaos filled the air. And then, something no soldier on Earth thought possible. On top of a burning tank destroyer stood one man. Not an army, not a squad. Just a single American soldier holding back the advance of nearly 250 elite German mountain troops and 6 armored tanks. The Wehrmacht's doctrine was clear. No one man could ever stop a combined assault. Yet, here he was rewriting the rules of war. That soldier was Audie Murphy. Murphy's path to that moment didn't begin on a battlefield. It began in the cotton fields of Hunt County, Texas. Born on June 20th, 1925, the 6th of 12 children, Audie grew up in crushing poverty. When his father walked out and his mother died in 1941, 16-year-old Audie became the head of the family. Feeding his younger siblings meant one thing. He had to hit every shot he fired. "If I miss, my family doesn't eat," he once told a neighbor. Every bullet counted. Every target had to fall. By necessity, Audie became a marksman who never missed. A skill that, years later, would terrify German soldiers across Europe. When Pearl Harbor was attacked, Murphy saw his way out. The military promised food, steady pay, and a chance to support his siblings. But at 5 feet 5 inches and barely 110 pounds, the Marines, Navy, and even paratroopers all rejected him. Too small, too weak. Only the Army infantry took him in, after his sister forged papers to make him old enough. In training, the drill sergeants mocked him, calling him child. Fellow recruits thought he was just a mascot. But when he picked up a rifle, his eyes went cold. He didn't miss. Not once. Murphy's baptism by fire came in Sicily, July 1943. The boy from Texas quickly proved he wasn't just another soldier. He was a natural predator on the battlefield, silently maneuvering, striking fast, calculating every move. By the time the Allies pushed into Italy and then France, Murphy had become something far more dangerous than anyone expected, a legend in the making. January 26, 1945, 2:20 p.m. The battlefield outside Holtzwihr erupted in fire. German tanks advanced, their 88mm guns blasting apart the American tank destroyers. One went up in flames. Another slid helplessly into a ditch. Both were out of action. For Company B, it meant one thing. No armor left, no heavy firepower left. The German infantry, nearly 250 men in white camouflage, were closing in. At that moment, Audie Murphy made a decision no sane man would. He ordered his men to fall back into the woods while he ran forward, straight into the fire. The burning tank destroyer was a death trap. Ammunition cooking off, smoke pouring out, the heat so intense it could be felt from 30 feet away. At any second, the whole thing could explode. But Murphy climbed on top, exposed, alone, silhouetted against the winter sky. And from there, he opened fire with the .50 caliber Browning machine gun. What followed was 40 minutes of impossible defiance. The heavy gun thundered, tearing through German ranks. Every burst precise, every shot counted. Soldiers dropped in the snow by the dozens. And all the while, Murphy calmly directed artillery fire by telephone, so close to his own position that shells burst just yards away. Private Abrams Guy later said, "It was the greatest display of guts and courage I've ever seen." German infantry pushed to within 10 yards. Too close. Murphy switched to his carbine, picking them off one by one. When the situation grew desperate, he gave the most chilling order of his life. "Fire on my position." American artillery rained down right on top of him, shrapnel tearing his leg. But Murphy didn't stop. He kept firing, bleeding, standing on a burning tank that could have exploded beneath him at any moment. Finally, the Germans broke. What was left of their company retreated. The tanks pulled back. The assault shattered by one man. Murphy climbed down at last, scorched, wounded but alive. He calmly walked back to his men, lit his cigarette, and asked if anyone else had been hurt. His hands didn't even shake. That day, Audie Murphy, just 19 years old, turned the tide of battle, saved his company, and wrote his name into history as America's most decorated soldier of World War II. Within weeks of Murphy's stand, the entire German bridgehead west of the Rhine collapsed. 50,000 German troops were gone from the war, and the road into Germany was open for the Allies. What Murphy did at Holzwihr wasn't just a victory. It was a message. Even elite, battle-hardened German forces could no longer break the resolve of American soldiers. French General Jean de Lattre de Tassigny later said it best. The defense of Holzwihr broke the back of German resistance in Alsace. On June 2, 1945, in Salzburg, Austria, Audie Murphy stood before his surviving comrades and received the Medal of Honor. The citation read simply, "For an hour, he stood alone, exposed to fire from 3 sides, and stopped the enemy's attack." But when asked why he risked his life, Murphy's reply was chillingly humble. "They were killing my friends. If one man could do the job, why risk the lives of others?" Yet victory came at a price. Murphy carried the war inside him for the rest of his life. What doctors now call PTSD haunted him with sleepless nights, nightmares, and paranoia. He slept with a loaded gun by his bed, or in his garage with the lights on, unable to face the darkness. He later admitted, "That day, I became something inhuman, a killing machine. No fear, no anger, just a cold determination to destroy." Instead of hiding it, Murphy spoke openly about these wounds of the mind, becoming one of the first public voices for veterans suffering from what he called battle fatigue. His honesty led to greater understanding of the psychological cost of war, and even a VA hospital in San Antonio bearing his name. By the time of his death in a plane crash at just 45, Audie Murphy had become the most decorated U.S. soldier of World War II. 33 medals for valor. Every major award America could give, and even honors from France and Belgium. But medals were never what defined him. It was that hour on a burning tank destroyer, when one 19-year-old boy from Texas stood alone against an army and refused to back down. Audie Murphy's chest, full of medals, tells only part of the story. Yes, he became the most decorated American soldier of World War II, honored by both the United States and Europe. But his greatest legacy wasn't measured in ribbons or citations. It was his voice, raised decades ahead of its time, fighting for veterans haunted by invisible wounds. The hospital that now bears his name continues his mission, treating PTSD and reminding the world that courage doesn't end when the shooting stops. His autobiography, To Hell and Back, still gives veterans strength, proving they are not alone in their battles. At military schools, his stand at Holzwihr is more than a history lesson. It's a case study in leadership, firepower, and the psychology of war. Young soldiers learn not just how he fought, but why. Because he valued his brothers in arms more than his own life. Modern commanders often ask, could one man stand like Murphy's ever happen again in today's age of satellites, drones, and precision weapons? The answer lies not in technology, but in spirit. From Fallujah to Baghdad, Iraq to Afghanistan, the echoes of Murphy's defiance live on. Ordinary men refusing to break, even against impossible odds. But Murphy's real war never ended. His nights were filled with screams, shadows, and memories that refused to die. His wife Pamela later recalled how he carried wounds no metal could heal. Yet, instead of surrendering to that pain, he turned it into purpose, advocating for those who had no voice. In doing so, he helped transform PTSD from a stigma into a recognized battlefield injury. On January 26, 1945, Audie Murphy stood alone against 250 Germans. He was just 110 pounds of grit and fire. But that day, he became something greater. To the Germans, he wasn't just a soldier. He was the shattering of their illusion that Americans were weak. To his men, he was the reason they lived to fight another day. Today, the fields of Holzwihr are quiet farmland, green and peaceful. But each year, French citizens, American veterans, and even former enemies gather at the memorial where one man changed history. Audie Murphy himself said he was no hero, that he climbed onto that burning tank destroyer for one simple reason. They were killing my friends. And maybe that's the deepest truth of war. Heroism isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to fight through it for something bigger than yourself. Audie Murphy, the boy who once hunted rabbits to feed his family, became the man who stopped an army to protect his brothers. His story is eternal proof that one person at the right place in the right moment, with the right will, can alter the course of history.